I don't intend to come back after this lifetime. I'm really cooked.
I'm done.
I've said to the universe, I'm done. This is my last lifetime. I'll do whatever you want me to do, but I'm not coming back. That this program seems to reroute the neural pathways in their brain, and it's highly likely that their children, when they're born, will have these pathways in place, and they should be able to be born seeing blindfolded. Now, let me tell you something. I challenge everybody watching this to go to a dictionary and a thesaurus and look up the word care.
Ooh.
Because it's not what we perceive it to mean. It's actually a very negative word.
So what do you do to raise your frequency like that?
Well, it's
Hey everyone, welcome to the Intelligent Soul. It's Ask Holly Hall, and guess who I've got on again? I have got Nicola Farmer on as a guest. If you want to take a look at the original interview, it was done in later part of 2024. You can scroll down and take a look at my YouTube channel and subscribe, of course, because that's how you get notification. I found her on a documentary called SuperHuman that was by Caroline Corey, and I think I'm going to take a look at it again because it's so inspiring with all of the superhuman powers that we have. And we're going to talk about how that's being hidden from us and why it's being hidden from us. And I think you'll be quite intrigued by that. And I do feel some of this will become full disclosure within the next year of 2025. But I wanted to bring her back on because she owns, you can find her on nicolafarmer.com, but she owns a company called ICU. And she has a segment, a part in that documentary that Caroline Corey did around how she could teach children how to read blindfolded. And that's just the cliffhanger. There's so much more that she's able to do and work with kids. And imagine if every child, it was mandatory that they had to learn a lot of these skills. It'll blow you away. And if you just search it in the search bar on YouTube, you'll even see clips if you don't want to watch the entire movie. And this is being done all over the world. Welcome, Nicola. Welcome to the Intelligent Soul again.
Thank you, Holly. It's lovely to be back.
And it's nice to have you back again as well. So let's just first talk about what is ICU very briefly, because we've done this in the other interview. And then we're going to jump in, what are the updates? What's happening? What's really exciting that's happening around ICU Academy?
Brilliant. Well, ICU Academy was something I set up several years ago. And ICU stands for Inspiring Children Universally, but it's a play on words as in ICU. And it's where I train teachers to work with children and where we work with children who potentially can see with a blindfold. And basically, Holly, what it means is that they can do anything that they would normally do with their physical eyes, but without them. So effectively, they're seeing with their what we call outer consciousness or spirit.
We're always looking for outside source of where is there magical powers on the outside? Is it a god? Is it the Bible? Is it aliens? Is it, supernatural powers? And when we actually have all of this inside of us all the time, but you did say it's a little more difficult to teach adults, much easier to teach children, correct?
Absolutely. And that's because when we work with the children, we do everything we can to bypass the left brain so that there's no logic, no analytical actions within the brain. So we don't ask them questions. We command them. So instead of saying, what color do you see? We say, tell me what color you see. Whereas an adult would even question, why have you got to keep my eyes closed underneath the blindfold? The kids don't even ask.
Yeah. Yeah. That's key.
Mm.
That makes a lot of sense. So what led you down the path of working with children on consciousness, on this conscious level?
Well, the main reason, having set up the ICU Academy, was because there is nothing for children spiritually. There's loads of information and teachings and guidance and podcasts and everything for adults. But there was this huge gap we could call it the spiritual market. But kids are so close to their outer levels of consciousness, that they needed to be guided along a path where the education, and I'm talking about mainstream education, where it doesn't drum it out of them.
Yeah.
Because when kids are at school, they have to work in their left brain all day long. There's not enough creativity in schools. So for me, the younger kids needed to be kept in that level of consciousness that they were born with. And then the other side of it is there's a huge gap with sort of teenagers, young adults, and especially in the last 10 years, I would say, that they're floundering. They've got no guidance. And I work with these teenagers and this big gap in their life. I mean, if we could liken it to, I don't know, a hole in the soul, and I know that's not possible, but if we said they had a hole in their soul and they know there's something missing, then what the kids are turning to is drugs and alcohol and anything that will feed this missing part of them. But what I came to realize is the bit that's missing is their spiritual side. Just understanding who they are, not just as a man or a woman, a boy and a girl, but who they are energetically.
Yeah.
Um, and that was my big passion because, these kids are our future. And we want to come, we've come here to help create a better world. What are we leaving it in the hands of?
Yeah.
Um, and so that was my main passion and desire to fill the gap of
Right.
spiritual teaching and guidance.
And we do live in a very, very left brain world, like 90%. And I get caught up in it. I'm sure you get caught up in it because it just surrounds us everywhere we are. When would you say was your defining moment when you found your purpose, when you knew this was your purpose?
Whoa, what, just with the kids or spiritually in general?
With the children. Yeah.
I would say probably about 10 years ago. And
Wow.
that moment, I was in Mexico doing some training. And I became a teacher of Drunvalo Melchizedek. And he was talking about these super psychic children. It piqued my interest so quickly. And there was a lady there that started talking about the kids that she worked with. And I just had this epiphany that kids need it more than adults mostly.
And what is your background? Do you have a teaching background? You have the spiritual background.
Yeah, until I sort of woke up and realized there was more to life than going to work every day. I've never really had a career, Holly. I've literally had lots of jobs since I left school, working in sales and finance and working for the National Health Service here in the UK and so many different types of jobs. But if I look back now, I realize that every single one of them was grooming me to do something with my spiritual job now. You know,
Yeah.
um, Building websites, running conferences, so many different things. And now it's like, wow, that was my teaching ground. And it was like,
I had the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, you don't need a career, you just need lots of tools in your box, really.
Yeah. You need a lot of experience
Yeah.
around that. So, how do you feel that if every child learned how to read, for instance, blindfolded, knew that they had remote viewing, knew that they had these telepathic and was taught it, just they know by the time they're 8 years old, they got this down pat. How would that change our future? What does the future look like to you if that was available to every child?
Oh my goodness. I wouldn't want to die. I'd want to stay and see it fulfill its purpose. Um, I would say that it would change the world to a point where, well, what comes into my mind? John Lennon's song, Imagine. Imagine there's no borders, imagine there's no wars, no fighting, no famine. And that's the song that came straight into my mind as you asked that question. And that's how I see a world being, a world in harmony. Um, you know, I heard once, Holly, that if every country in the world gave up their defense budget, there'd be no wars and no starving people.
That's true.
And can you imagine if that was directed, that those finances were directed into the youth and developing a, a, a world of children that are going to be able to take the world forward harmonically?
Yeah.
That would be something else to see. You know, I don't intend to come back after this lifetime. I'm really cooked.
I'm done.
I've said to the universe, I'm done. This is my last lifetime. I'll do whatever you want me to do, but I'm not coming back. But I tell you something now, if the children were going to change the world like I'd like to see them, I'd come back 1,000 times.
I love that. And you know what? Your soul only sees that part. It doesn't see the human part that doesn't want to come back. As soon as you
Exactly.
become a soul, you're like, why did I say I didn't want to come back? I don't
Yeah.
I don't understand that. I see it in the playbook there, but now that I'm a
But,
soul, I'm ready to jump back in again.
but wouldn't it be lovely
We're
if you didn't
crazy, aren't
have to
we?
come back? Would it be lovely if you didn't have to come back? You could choose to come back.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. I wrote it in my book and 101 Answers in the Universe. And I got a download that we had nine plus dimensions. And the ninth, and we're not even near, but the ninth dimension, we're not near there's a collective dimensions and there's individual ones. And
Yeah.
once we get to something like seven, eight, and nine, we do have a choice. We
Yeah.
have a choice when we come back, where
Yeah.
we go, because this isn't the only place,
Yeah.
and how long we want to stay in different locations. We have
Yeah.
more choices. So this is why we want to become much more spiritually evolved, because we have that more free will as a soul to make
Yeah.
different choices. It, that's mine. And then I say plus because to me it's endless. It's infinity. Like
Yeah.
you don't get to a place where, oh, I'm spiritually evolved now. I've done my job. It's like it's never ending.
Exactly. But you know, as a star seed, I would like to go home.
Yeah.
Like I'd like to go back to my level of consciousness where I came
Yeah.
from before I came to Earth. And
Yeah.
Anna, one of my spirit team, she said to me, you know, when you take your last breath in this lifetime, do not go into the light. And I said, why? What's the light? She said, light is reincarnation. She said, if you want to go somewhere else, take a 90-degree turn.
I like that. I've always thought that. It's like the birth canal. The
Yeah,
light of the birth can tell you just like back in it again.
you go again.
It's like no wonder we're kicking and screaming when we get out.
I've said that time and time again.
It's like, what the heck? This looks way too familiar.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
wonder though if we lived in a world where everyone had these powers that we innately have trapped within our mind, within our psyche, within our soul, we would want to come back, wouldn't we? Because this would be a wonderful, beautiful, f- easy flow, like heaven. It would be a beautiful place to be in, and everyone would be wonderful to be around.
exactly, because Earth is like the universal playground.
Yeah,
And we come here to have the most incredible experiences and to understand on a human level what joy is and love and all of those things. And yet we look around us and there's nothing but fear. But if all of those skills were unlocked, let's just use telepathy as an example. If we were all telepathic, nobody could lie.
yeah. So why would you? It
Exactly.
probably wouldn't even be in your
In your psyche.
language.
No,
Yeah, you wouldn't even think about it.
no. So I question how much um, each person has within them. You know, whether it's telepathy, telekinesis, whether it's the ability to see blindfolded. I mean, we all have that natural intuition. And when we're working with the intuition, it is the most natural part of us as human beings. But it's shut down. And I'm 100% sure that the educational systems do it.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, no
Yeah, they're making
disrespect.
they're creating great little soldiers.
Yeah, no disrespect to any teacher on this planet because their task is, you know, a big, big task to teach a classroom full of kids. But we need to keep those innate skills going because that way we're going to create a better world as well.
So this is a great segue to the question that we talked about before we started recording, and that is, it's if you do your research, there's Stargate. Everyone's going to know Stargate as the new AI platform that Trump has put forward, but there is an old Stargate program, and you can still find it. It's not confidential anymore. In fact, I got a copy of it. If anybody wants it, just email me. And it was where they were teaching CIA agents, specifically deployed, to be able to use skills such as remote viewing, telepathy, etc. They've been doing this all around the world. You're not the only academy or school that's doing this around the world. And there are now, in the next 12 months, everyone, this is January 2025, you're going to see this full disclosure of these superhuman powers that people that are working for the military and the army, they're very aware of. They've been told to keep their mouths shut, or their lives would be at danger, or their loved ones' lives would be at danger. And why? Is it because they're protecting us? No, they're protecting themselves because they don't want us to know that we could have had these abilities to have these gifts. Yeah, I think it would be difficult for me to learn. I obviously have some gifts that I get downloads and connections to, but I live my everyday life like everybody else does, and I get, deer in a headlight with this left brain world like everybody else does. But what is your opinion on that? What is your thoughts around what's going on in the world, the full disclosure? Do you think they're going to submerge it again and hide it from us again? Do you feel this is a gateway for you to finally, show what your worth is and what your mission is?
Big question, Holly.
Lots of questions.
I love it. I love it. Um, I think that the disclosure is going to fully assist everybody to wake up. We've got a percentage of awakened human beings on this planet right now, and there's still a lot that are in this, what I call the slumber state. But knowing that we have innate abilities, and let me just say something here. I don't teach anybody anything. I facilitate people to remember. Because like you and I, there's nothing we don't know. We've just got this psychic amnesia that, we're not born with it. It's drummed into us. So I feel that the world is going to change drastically this year. But, we're in a number 9 year. So when we move into 2026 and we go into a number 1 year in numerology, this is new beginnings. So I feel that 2025 is full disclosure. It's going to be a mass awakening for a lot of people. And there's also going to be not just an awakening within those that are asleep, but a bigger awakening in others who are already awake. So the light workers, there's going to be more skills coming to the surface because
I like that.
I feel like the lead overcoat that we've been wearing for so long is just crumbling.
Yeah,
And that lead overcoat, unfortunately, is those that have been controlling for so long as well.
absolutely. And what I'm finding too is the ones that are coming out, and this is what's going to happen, it's going to create another divide, don't you think? It's really going to,
Absolutely.
yeah, people are going to be afraid. They don't want to believe.
Yeah.
There's going to be media that's going to come out and discredit all of
Yeah.
them. Like, look at their past, look at their history. They're a bunch of,
Yeah.
they're wacky. They got problems.
Yeah.
And why? What's the benefit of that? Why wouldn't you want to believe that your child could have telepathic skills or have the ability to solve problems without being taught a
It's because,
manual way of doing it according to some
yeah,
dogma that's written in a mathematics book? And I agree with you. Now, what areas do you think there's going to be massive changes in 2025?
um, well, I'm just going to cover something before I do that because I
Yeah.
just want to say to all the light workers out there,
Yes.
don't stop evolving because we've got this huge divide between the awake and the asleep. But we've got this mini divide going on between the awake. And what I'm seeing is that those who have been developing their skills and their attributes for the last however many tens of years, some people are still doing the same thing they were doing 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just call out to all of them, go out there and continue to develop your skills, because the mini void that's opening between light workers is like what we're going to be seeing is those that stay on the side of the void between the awake and the asleep. Eventually the void will stop widening and we'll build a bridge back to the asleep side so that people can cross it. Now, how that plays out, I don't know. But right now, we've just got light workers just keep evolving. Don't stand still.
What do you have? That's great advice. What advice do you have? And I witness this with my clients as well. And, everyone, Nicola Farmer is also a spiritual advisor and she coaches just like I do. And she works with clients just as I do. And I do find that everyone is still making it about the money because they see the Tony Robbins out there and they see the Wayne Dyers and the Oprah Winfreys and the Eckhart Tolles and they're millionaires now and they, million New York bestsellers. And everyone wants to be that. That seems to be their goal. And it helped. I think it's keeping them from their real mission.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was coaching someone earlier today, and she has a real issue around money. And my advice to her, and I give this to everybody, is when it comes to the monetary side of our work, I see it as just energy. So money to me is energy, and when I exchange something, there has to be a fair exchange. But the fundamental basic, Holly, is that people need to understand their value. We can aspire to be whatever we want to be, but we're only going to go as our soul plan takes us.
Yeah.
But when we want to be those big people with lots of money, for me, it's the aspiration to be the best version of yourself, but it doesn't automatically make you a millionaire.
Right.
So the exchange, the financial exchanges is energy, and some people say to me, I'm too expensive, and some people say I'm too cheap. But what I do is I
I've
charge.
heard both for me too. Yeah, you should be charging more. I'm like, I'm okay with what I charge.
That's right. Exactly. And I don't want to put myself in a price bracket where people can't reach me. So it comes down to being sensible. It's common sense, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you get caught up in, because I've even worked with clients and intuitively, without knowing or astrologically or intuitively, or I get downloads when they say, I need to make a certain amount of money. I can tell the people that really do, and I
Mhm.
can tell the people that don't.
Yeah.
And I'll call them out. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you don't. Your husband makes enough money.
Yeah.
You have a second home. Like, I'll get all this downloaded, right?
Yeah.
You don't need, I said, but what the problem is that you don't want other people to support you. You want to make your own money because you've got a negative money story. Even though your
Yeah.
husband supports you, you don't want
Yeah.
his money. You want your own money. And they'll be like, how did you know that? That's true. And I said,
Exactly.
why? You're getting in your own way
Yeah.
when it comes
You
down
know,
to that.
exactly. Above all else, the key to anybody's success, especially spiritually, is truth and authenticity.
Mhm.
Um,
That's
and
a big
couple,
word, authentic. That's a very complicated. I have a very complicated relationship with authenticity.
but
It's hard.
it is hard. But you see, those two words, truth and authenticity, they can only be in place when we love and respect ourselves. And that's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah,
But again, love is a fundamental basic of being a human being. And
right.
like everything else, whether it be issues around money, if it's issues around control, if it's issues around anything, it comes down to conditioning, and the conditioning starts when we're children. And
Here we go again, full circle. Yeah.
going back to that, it's like we've got to grab these kids when while we can, so that they are their authentic selves. It's like autism. I don't call it autism, I call it authentism, because people on the
Mhm.
spectrum are nothing but
Yes.
authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because yeah, they are exactly who they are unapologetically. They do start to show odd behaviors because they're trying to script themselves and force themselves to conform to society.
Yeah,
And that's why they sound robotic at times, and they sound like they're giving scripted answers, like what everybody else would say, what everybody else would do. They start to lose their authenticity as well, as they get older in this crazy world. How long do you think? First of all, let's not. I'm going to ask you, how long do you think it'll take for humanity to catch up and to get in this world, this utopian world that we would both like to see? But before that, what are the updates? Like what's going on with your world with your ICU Academy? Is it getting more exposure? What does 2025 hold?
yeah. I mean, I've got a training program for teachers throughout the year, and I think we're almost full up to September now, which is very, very exciting. And that's, people from all around the world, which means more exposure for the children to benefit from the work. Um, I can see 2025 being very exciting, not just for ICU, but for all spiritual work. And I keep using the word excited because we need excitement to be contagious, not
Yeah.
another pandemic. We need an absolute wave of excitement moving through humanity, so that everybody's sort of looking and knowing that there's more to life. But I'm very excited. As I said to you earlier, I've got a magazine article coming out in the UK, in a national lifestyle magazine. That's great. I have every intentions of the ICU program being made public on national television this year. Um, when you just know you're ready,
Yeah.
you know that it's there and it's going to happen, um, and you just sit back and you can say to the universe, "I'm ready."
Yeah. It's ripe for the picking. It's
That's
ready
it,
to
and
be.
that's how it feels. That's how 2025 feels. 2024 was okay.
Yeah.
2025 is like, whoa, this is exciting. And 2026 is going to be hallelujah.
Yeah, 2026, 2027 is when I see the crossover. That's when I see that everything that everybody has been looking for, a different medical system, different educational system. That's where I see what I've called the Great Divide, where
Yeah,
half of us are going to be living our authentic
yeah,
self life in our own authentic world. When people get upset with me, like they're doing this to farmers and they're doing this to the agricultural system, and the grocery stores are full of all this food, and the educational system is failing us, and the medical system is failing us. I know that some people might think that's odd, but I get excited about that. I don't want to see people suffer. I don't want to see farmers suffer, but we need to go back to smaller farms. We need to go back to smaller, more uh, locally led schooling systems. And we
oh,
need to go back to more supporting each other. If we want to have free energy, we can look at somebody in our locale or in our country that provides free energy, and we have the freedom to have that in our
yeah,
backyard if that's what we choose. And you might think, oh, you already have, you got windmills and all that stuff. Like, no, that is not free energy.
mm,
And that was not orchestrated by Joe Blow in the
yeah.
next town. And I feel that that's where we got to get to. And we do need the breaking down of the system in order for it to happen. So even though people are scared right now and they're attacking each other for their political views and their political choices, etc., part of it I'm excited about because I'm like, okay, let's do this. It's coming down.
Well, put it this way, you can't fix something unless it's broken.
Right, right.
And for me, it's all about that sense of community.
Yep.
That word unity, community, that's what it's all about.
Coming together in union. That's
That's
what
right.
community, that's the Latin version of community. We need to teach kids the origin of words too, because
Yeah.
people are like using words like not even knowing what the order. I wish I was a lot more versed actually in
Well,
that, and I'm not. But I often look up the origin and the Latin and the basis of like conspiracy. That's my biggest one. That
yeah.
word doesn't even mean what that word used to mean,
No.
what it was meant to be.
Well, let me tell you something. I challenge everybody watching this to go to a dictionary and a thesaurus and look up the word care
Ooh,
because it's not what we perceive it to mean. It's actually a very negative word.
really?
Yeah.
Okay, you have to
Abs-
tell us. You have to tell us.
Well,
What is it?
I'm just going to bring it up on my phone here and read to everybody exactly what the meaning of care is. Just bear with me. I'm just going to bring it up here because um, seriously, Holly, it's been misused for so long. And this came through a trance session with one of my clients, and it has been um, so the alternative words, the synonyms for the word care listed on my dictionary: concern, load, responsibility, apprehension, anxiety, annoyance, dismay, distress, oppression, pressure, solicitude. They're all synonyms for the word care.
Wow.
I know. And you think, I mean, in the dictionary it says uh, the word care is a noun, a state of mind in which one is troubled, worry, anxiety, or concern.
So
You
what
know,
would so what would replace that word?
well, when I had this trance session with this lady, the lady said to Anna, my guide, she said, "Well, if I'm to stop caring, what am I supposed to do?" And she said, "You love. You simply replace it with love."
Yes, love or
And she,
peace. Happiness should be replaced with peace.
yeah, and she said, when you replace care with love, it's the key to emotional freedom and detachment. For me, I stopped caring a long time ago because it didn't align with my psyche, with who I am.
Right.
But it didn't mean I left a void. It simply meant that when I stopped caring, I loved.
What I like about your version of love too, and I know it's the same version as me, because a lot of people equate the word love to a feeling. What if I don't like that person? What if I don't feel connected to that person? No. If you can't provide the action that's needed for that person to experience love while they're in anger, or they're in pain, or they're suffering, and it's toxic for you and you can't stick around it, then you hope and you love and you give that love to them, that they will find it, that they will find that the care, the care, sorry, the comfort,
Yeah,
the need, the desire, the healing, the love somewhere. I wish them love. I wish them well. I can't provide it, but I really sincerely want them to find whatever it is in them that they need
exactly.
this. Yeah,
But when I'm mentoring people, I'll say to them, can you feel compassion? Can you feel joy? Can you feel peace? And they will say, yes, of course I can. And I'll say to them, actually, you can't. What you're feeling when you're feeling compassion, joy,
bingo.
and peace is love.
Yeah,
So we only feel love, but the byproducts of love are compassion, joy, and peace.
right.
And all of those can be in place when we know what love feels like. And it is
Correct.
not external to us, it's internal.
Absolutely. And we have to practice this every day. I tell people, like, they're like, how do you get there? I go, you brush your teeth every day. It's a routine practice to keep your teeth healthy. This is what you have to practice every day. And when somebody comes and challenges that, that's your greatest opportunity to practice it more, to
Thing.
strengthen that muscle. Like it's like you're
Yeah.
If you're working out on a gym and up the weights and oh, I'm going to be sore after this because I'm challenging the status quo. I've been doing this weight for months and now I'm going to, double the weight. And that's when somebody comes into your life that challenges you. And people aren't aware of this because of the social bantering that's going on in comments and posts on social media. Like, I'm not saying that I want somebody to be in my face, rude and mean to me. I'm not going to hang out with them. I'm not going to break bread with them. But I do wish is whatever they're afraid of, I hope they find peace with it. You're not going to do it with me, but I hope you find it somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Rather than going around spewing hate that there's so many hateful people in the world. And, I came across this too. I was reminding myself of this story of Socrates because I took philosophy and psychology in university. And I was talking with a friend about the Socrates. And I thought I'm gonna, find something on YouTube and remind myself of that whole story when he was ostracized for saying something in public that the government thought he should apologize for, or he'll be executed, or he needs to exile. And that's a whole nother story. You can look it up under the Republic. But I've learned through this one is that the origin of apology is not to say you're sorry. And the origin is to defend yourself
Yeah.
with the reason why you did what you did.
Yeah.
It's that's the Greek word for apology means
Mm.
exactly that, defending yourself. And yet we don't look at that anymore. We don't sit long enough to debate somebody's reasoning or their sorrow or their anger for why they did. We just go, you need to apologize to me or get out of my
Yeah. But
like
that's because
that's
the world,
enough. They have no voice. Just apologize.
but that's because the world has become judgmental,
Right.
and everybody's quick to judge somebody for what they say and who they are. But nobody's prepared to look in the mirror and establish their own ways of doing things and who they are.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm when I'm coaching people, I'll say to them, but are you being judgmental or are you observing? And they'll say
Oh,
to me,
what's the
what's
difference?
yeah, they say, what's the difference? And I'll say, if I'm observing somebody's behavior, I'll keep my mouth shut. I said, but if I'm judging them, I'll tell them what I think of them and it won't be nice. I said, so, are we a world of observers or are we a world of people who judge? And unfortunately, there's not enough observers.
You're 100% right. And if you don't need to defend yourself, you don't. We do live in a world. This is how we survive. We make judgment calls every single day. We make
Yeah,
judgment calls for our health, for our well-being, for what direction we're going to go when we're going to the grocery store in the middle of a snowstorm. There are areas where judgment is necessary for our
yeah,
survival, for our
yeah,
basic primal survival. But it's become almost a source of entertainment now. Let's
yeah,
judge everything and everyone's choices and not observe, not debate, not have a philosophical conversation around this. The people that I get along with most, and at my age, I've just found two of those types of people in the past year, are people that I can have. And I'm sure if you and I lived in the same country, we would break bread and have the same kind of conversations. Is people that are open to my opinion and I'm open to their opinion and the conversation flows because we get excited about each other's opinions and we
yeah,
don't get angry or upset about those opinions. It actually, I call them stacking conversations. It actually allows you to come to a completely different conclusion than you would have if you didn't have the conversation with them. And whether they, and the object is not to change each other's mind.
Isn't that the best way of learning?
Yeah, it's so freeing. It's so liberating.
And when I'm teaching groups of people, and I'll say to them, what I'm going to share with you is my understanding, my opinion on things. And if it resonates, hold on to it. If it doesn't matter.
That's right. Absolutely. What changes have you seen in some of the children that you have seen schooled in this remote viewing, reading blind? Have any of them made huge contributions or changes or their as an adult, or was it hard for them to keep working with it as an adult to find a job or a purpose with these abilities, or do they lose the abilities after a while?
I can't tell you because the kids aren't old enough yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's been 10
Um,
years, so
and let me just clarify, they don't remote view. The
okay, thank
kids,
you.
yeah, the kids see with their outer consciousness or their spirit. So there's no third eye involved. There's no remote viewing. They literally see with their spirit eyes. But the changes we see in them, Holly, are really quite vast. We've seen leaps in education. We've seen miraculous health recoveries. We've seen kids grow massively in confidence. Um, and nearly every parent reports that their children become more loving. And if that's even possible in a child, bring it on because it's just amazing. The thing I can tell you that I've become very aware of in the older students, even though they're still in education, is it appears that the midbrain, the limbic brain, becomes like the how can I put it? The bridge between the left and the right brain. So the left and the right brain become logically creative and creatively logical. So instead of being good at one thing or another, they seem to be good at both. For instance, one of my students, he went on to do computer science in his teenage years at school, and his computer science teacher was amazed the fact that he could build a computer and program it equally as well. So,
Wow.
I'm told that you're either good at one or the other, but he could do both really, really well. So it seems that the program gives them left right brain coherence. Um, and I can't prove this yet, but it will happen that this program seems to reroute the neural pathways in their brain, and it's highly likely that their children, when they're born, will have these pathways in place, and they should be able to be born seeing blindfolded. Now, obviously, that's a long way off to prove it, but I can see that really happening.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah,
So if you've
absolutely.
got all these children that it seems to be almost an epidemic now, where they've got ADD, ADHD, autism, and all of these other, I don't know, over 40 different neurodiverse issues. It sounds to me that your program would actually help all of them if they were
Mass-
to. And it's only
yeah.
like 6 week program, isn't it?
Well, it's 12 sessions, so it could be
Okay.
done in 6 weeks.
Okay.
But yeah, 6 weeks to 12 to 24 maximum.
Perfect.
Um, but you see, what we're seeing is that the kids who are neurodiverse, they are very high frequency kids. If we
Yeah,
compared them,
absolutely.
if we compared them to a light bulb, they'd be at least 120-watt light bulb, whereas most human beings are about 30. So what we're seeing is the kids are being plugged into a system that can only manage a 30-watt light bulb, so they just constantly blow fuses. But when they go through the ICU program, they expand their level of consciousness to the point where they meet themselves coming back. And so suddenly they're in alignment with who they are in a human body, and they start to excel in different ways.
Hmm.
So uh, they they become calmer in different ways. They It's like they become fully aligned. That's the best way I can describe it, which in itself is very, very exciting because then they feel comfortable being them.
That's the greatest gift you could give your child, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as a teacher working with a neurodivergent child, it's hard work because
Yes.
you've got to adjust to them to get them through the program in a way that they're comfortable. So we have to fit with them rather than they fit with us. Um, but just aside from that, something just popped into my mind. I worked with a little boy who I went to meet for the first time, and his mum said to me, when you come into the room, he will hide behind me. She said, don't be offended or anything. He just does it with everybody. So I walked into the room and he ran and hid behind his mother. And I said to my team, um, how do I make him feel comfortable with me being in the room? And Anna said to me, raise your frequency to mirror his. So I was like, okay. So I'm cranking up the frequency and I'm going up and up. And in the end, I felt like I was being elongated because my frequency was going so high. And I'm like, am I there? Am I there? She said, you'll know when you're there. And I just kept raising my frequency. And then all of a sudden, his head poked out from behind his mum, as in, what's that? And then Anna said to me, take it a notch higher. And I went above his frequency and he walked towards me.
Wow.
Yeah. His
Wow.
mum cried. I had to sort of hold back the tears because I'm holding this frequency like I'm going to combust. But once I mirrored him and went above his frequency, he was at peace with me.
And what are we doing in the educational system? Maybe we're lowering our
Yeah.
frequency.
Just by sitting them in a classroom with a fluorescent light on the ceiling,
Right.
it numbs them down.
So what do you do to raise your frequency like that?
Well, I just do it with intention. So, I don't need a visual, and it's just like I'm turning the dial up, and I just take it up and up and up and up, and then, but you've got to expand your field at the same time. So,
Hmm.
as my field is going out, I'm going up. Um, and and it's I mean, everybody can do it.
Yeah.
Everybody can. It's just setting your intention or using a visual aid that will, turn the handle, turn the dial, push the button, whatever it takes, but take your frequency up.
And when is
Uh,
it a good time to raise your frequency, and when is it not a good time to raise your frequency?
well, if it was me, I'd live in a high frequency all the time, but I wouldn't function very well. So,
Why
I mean,
not?
when I'm working spiritually, I'm always in a high frequency. If I'm
Yeah,
going around the
I hear you
supermarket,
there. Yeah.
if I'm walking around the supermarket, it's a different game. So, um, but I do set my intentions that my frequency will adjust according to the situation. So I just put it on autopilot, really.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And are there people that try to lower other people's frequencies?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they're
So it's not
generally
easy.
no, they're generally negative people. I use an analogy that you might like to hear. It's so I use the piano keyboard as an example, and the middle note on a piano keyboard is C, and then it goes up in octaves and down in octaves. So I kind of liken it that everybody, when they're born, comes in around middle C, an octave above or an octave below. Um, and then as we evolve, we move up to the top end of the keyboard where the higher, finer notes are. And if we choose a life of negativity, we go down the keyboard. And someone said to me once about heaven and hell, and I said, well, let's use the keyboard as the analogy. Heaven's at the top of the keyboard and hell's at the bottom of the keyboard, but it's still here on earth.
Ah, yeah, that's a
So
great analogy. I like that.
yeah, so for me, I just want to keep climbing the keyboard to reach the highest notes I can and live that way. Um, but there will always be something that will happen that maybe I'll just drop a bit. But if I know I'm dropping, I'm conscious enough to go back up.
Hmm.
I'll say to people, if you get angry, that's fine. Just don't stay angry. If you're sad, that's okay too, but don't stay sad. You have no reason to stay sad. Sad and anger and negative emotions are just a form of release, that's all.
Yeah.
If we live our lives by that, then we're choosing, and we don't have to choose to be sad.
I practice, and I've been following this one philosopher, Rupert Spira, and it's we identify too much. Instead of saying I am sad, you're not sad. You're feeling sad
That's right.
temporarily, but you are not sadness and you are not anger. And you're not even, well, we're all love and peace. That's
Yeah,
our natural being. And everything but beyond that is your finite mind identifying it,
that's right.
identifying with a feeling, but
Yeah.
you are not that feeling. And
I am creates the identity.
right,
Yeah.
right. And that's the whole idea of consciousness is that we create our, and it's hard to tell that to somebody who's been through horrific experiences, but it's our memory and our identification with that memory that is creating our current state of consciousness. I mean, even I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. But you can look at animals, for instance, if you have a dog or a cat, you can see that they can put themselves in a painful or awkward or situation. And then when it's done, it's done. They just go on like nothing happened, you know. And if it happened continuously on a regular basis, then that dog would or animal would start to change their behavior to adjust to that fear of
Yeah.
consistent fear that they had. But other than that, they just, and same with autistic kids,
Yeah.
they just, what
Yeah.
happened 5 minutes ago is gone.
That's
It's
right.
history.
Yeah. But it's all about that spiritual muscle again, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you exercise it one way, it will have that memory recall, and if you exercise it another way, it won't. So,
Yeah.
it's how we live our lives and what we put into practice that's going to define whether we're at the top end of the keyboard or the bottom end of the keyboard.
That's right.
And I don't even want to hover around the middle. I want to maintain what I've done to get to the near on the way to the top of the keyboard, because I don't want to go back to mediocre,
But
and
also, then you leave that innocence is bliss world
and you
and you
think,
become more awake. And once you become more and more aware, you don't even have to be awake, just aware of the
yeah,
reality of what's going on. You don't have to get sucked into it or doom and gloom. It's the nature of being a human being. And it's been that way for billions of years or millions of years. Uh, but you can't go back. You can't go back to being unaware.
and when you no, because when you can't not know.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and one of the exercises I give people to get them out of their heads, and I'll say to them, you need to eliminate the word think from your vocabulary.
Replace it with feel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I just say I feel instead of I think. And then one day Anna said to me, we want you to say I know instead of I feel. Well, that shut me up for a couple of days because I
I
couldn't say
bet.
it unless I really knew it.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're not thinking, you're not feeling. It's like, I know this,
That's it.
no
You know,
doubt.
I think it's going to rain. I feel it's going to rain. I know it's going to rain. And they are three massively different ways of saying things. Um, you know, don't you think, Holly, it takes a lot of hard work to get where we are?
I feel it does. Yes. No, I know it does.
Exactly. Um, but would you change it? Because I wouldn't.
No, no,
And
not in a
great,
million years. And I'm
yeah,
blessed in this lifetime. I'm able to share, the gifts that come. I don't even like to call them gifts because I feel like it's just in me,
things.
and
Yeah,
it's not me. It's like channeled through me. I'm a vessel of this. But yeah, I wouldn't change that. And I'm lucky to see the fruits of my labor.
yeah.
Yeah.
All the challenges that I've had along the way in this lifetime and probably many previous lifetimes, I wouldn't change one of them. And I love about myself, and I love it when I see it in others, is that when they're challenged, they take the challenge and they make it positive. And that is a skill in itself.
It's huge skill, and it can take a lifetime to
Yeah,
get to that. It could take decades to get
yeah,
to that. I try to tell my clients, I said, if you've had a challenging life, you feeling lonely, you feel like you don't fit in, well, congratulations.
yeah,
You come into our space because this is what it's like to be here because we're not going to conform. We're not going to I can pretend when I have to.
yeah,
I'm not going to go at, a banquet that my husband might have and start talking about spirituality and astrology if they're not into it. I'll just, you know, what did
yeah,
you that weather was really bad yesterday, wasn't it? We got stuck. So did we. I'll do the small talk. I don't
yeah.
expect everybody to go there, but I will go like it's not what I want to do every day,
No.
you know.
I asked Anna once about the mystery schools, the ancient mystery schools, and I said to her, "Why don't we have them today?" And she said, "You do." And I said, "Well, like the ancient ones?" And she said, "Well, not necessarily." She said, "But you do have them." I said, "Well, where are they?" She said, "They're within you." She said, "It's called life." And she said, "Every time you have a challenge in your life, you're attending the mystery school to become more enlightened beyond that challenge."
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So I've got two more questions before we
Yeah.
finish up and we wrap this up. What advice do you have for educators who want to integrate spiritual awareness into their classroom?
I would absolutely start with, it's called mindfulness a lot, but get the kids doing a little bit of yoga and a little bit of meditation, and then let it develop from there. But absolutely nurture their creative side. Get them telling stories and sharing, as much as they can creatively. Because if they don't nurture the right brain, there's no chance of bringing spirituality into a classroom anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how can healers, I know you kind of touched on this earlier, like don't give up, but what can healers and light workers, how can they best support the next generation?
By living their authentic life and inspiring the next generation to follow them in their footsteps. You know, as an inspirer, there's no greater way to teach. Because if people see how you're living your life and you're living it in such a way that you can smile every day, and they come up to you and say, what is it you're taking? What is it you're doing that makes you smile every day? And you just tell them what you're doing, then you're going to inspire.
I love that. And I find that, if you're a light worker, if you're here as indigo or star seed, and you have a child, and you think like, how did I have a child that is so stubborn, so dogmatic, has anger management issues? I wanted to give birth to another star seed.
But that child
Well,
might well be a star seed. It's just come to challenge,
exactly.
make
And
you
and and
better.
and your job isn't to help other people that are like you. Your job is to help people that are not there yet.
Yeah,
And sometimes we don't see the fruits of our labor, or we get caught up in the drama around it and we get off track.
I know. And then we have to look at a much bigger picture about soul contracts.
Yes.
So what did your child agree to come and teach you in life?
Yeah. My biggest thing now with the self-help industry is in the last 30 years is even the last 20 years really, is parents feeling like they do not want to raise their children the way they were raised. I don't want to do what my mom did. I didn't want to do what my dad did. And I like people to pause and go, "Well, what did your mom and dad do?" Like they could have really, most of you have a soul contract with your parents.
Yeah,
And if you have hatred and anger, and I'm not saying everybody has to talk to their parents. My mom
yeah,
hasn't talked to me in 12 years, 13
yeah.
years,
Me
but
too.
I believe that was part of our soul contract.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not angry. I'm not mad at her. I have no hatred. There's nothing. It doesn't faze me at all that this is what happened. I'm not saying it didn't right at the beginning. It did. But I understand the whole story behind it. But when I have the first thing, I'm like, what is your relationship with your mom and dad? And it sounds a bit Freudian. But to me,
Mm.
it's more, this was your soul contract.
Yeah.
Did you fulfill it? Are you
Yeah.
angry? Are you pushing them away? Is this consuming your heart and your thoughts and your feelings around this icon of a parent that you put on some pedestal that was
Yeah.
really supposed to be here to help you fulfill a soul contract? So if you had a very angry parent, I know almost always we'll see anger in the person's anger management in the person's chart. And so, did
Yeah.
you grow up to be more angry, or did you grow up to really fight with those demons within yourself and work on that and from them? Well, that was your lesson. Like,
Yeah.
we have to honor, like, we've lost honoring our soul contracts.
I would always say to a client, if they've got issues with parents or even kids,
Yeah,
okay, the two questions I ask them is, what did they teach you how to be? And what did they teach you how not to be? And
and
which path did you choose?
I love it. And we could apply this to every single person in our lives.
Exactly. Because it doesn't matter who we encounter in our lives, whether it be blood, friend, colleague, stranger, there's always something we can learn from another person. Always. I don't know if you've read Neil Donald Walsh's book, The Little Soul in the Sun. It's a
Yes,
children's
I
book.
have. Yeah, and you can get a video on YouTube
Yeah.
around it as well.
And those two books, The Little Soul in the Sun and The Little Soul in the Earth, every human being should read those books.
Yeah, it should be standard in the school. Like soon as use
Absolutely.
little like kids can read this book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was written for the kids, but every adult should read it.
yeah.
Um, and I love the bit when the little soul says, when I blight you and make your life so bad that you have to find it in your heart to forgive me, look into my eyes and remember who I am. And for me, there is no more profound sentence in any book that I've ever read than
I
that
just got
one.
chills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it
Um,
doesn't matter what soul contract we have. When we finished in this lifetime, we all go back to the same place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for that reminder. My daughter is a school teacher with special needs. I'm going to order that book right now and send it to her because I'd forgotten about it and I think she would benefit from it and so would her kids. Thank you so much, Nicola. I know 2025 is going to be your year to open up a little tiny gate that will be huge, really, for people to work with children in a much different way.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you for fulfilling your contract.
Thank you. It's been a hard work, but it's been an absolute pleasure as well.
Absolutely. If anybody wants to get a hold of Nicola Farmer's nicolafarmer.com, you can take a look at all the links I'm going to put below. If you're finding this on another platform, head over to YouTube, subscribe. That's where you're going to find the other video that I did with her last year as well. And I've been blessed to have her back on again. Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. Namaste.
Namaste.